Steve Gardner, with job covering Baseball USA Today, joins us as weekly spot on the Boardwalk on the Hotline. Steve, how you been, bud?
I'm ready for this conclusion of the regular season. A lot of drama as we head into the final days, huh?
Well, Philly fans, they're waiting for the season to come down to a miserable close. Listen, I know the majority, because I spoke to them yesterday, of the fan base will look at the last month of the season. They're going to see how badly the team played. They want the manager gone. It doesn't help you get embarrassed by Colorado. They're going to get swept. They've given up 34 runs in 3 games. I'm getting killed for saying I don't believe they quit. I just think this is who they are. 6-18 in September. I mean, it looks like they've quit, but I don't believe that. I just don't think they're a good team, and they ran out of gas, and everything kind of just has manifested itself. I mean, how much of a knee-jerk reaction would it be for them to turn around at the end of the season, in spite of management and ownership backing Kapler and then firing him?
I think it would be silly. I really do. I mean, you can't say that the Phillies haven't made strides from last year to this year. I mean, this is a team that seems to be on the rise, and I don't see how you can let a disappointing final 2 weeks of the regular season mask over all the things that have been done positively and the growth that the franchise has shown over the course of the 2018 season. To me, it seems ludicrous. And, Gabe Kapler, as we've talked about all season long, is growing into the role as manager. I mean, if you took him and what the fans wanted to do after 1 week of him on the job and asking for him to be fired because of that, it's the first week and the last 2 weeks.
Yep.
In between that, I think he's done a fine job.
And this was listen, we had this conversation before, because a couple months ago, all of a sudden, he was manager of the year, NL candidate for manager of the year. Look what he's doing with this rotation. It's his job to take care of this rotation. Look at the year that Nola's having. Now, they've had issues with the pen. They haven't really been able to really differentiate who's the true closer, who's the middle relief. But that's how baseball is right now. And as far as the starters, it's not like a DeGrom where he's going to go out and give you 6, 7, 8 strong every night. That's not where we're at baseball. I think people... I said this the other day. You'd be a rudderless franchise. You go from Ryan Sandberg, which, let's be honest, his heart was not into it. Kapler he's into it, right? He's into it. He's got the passion for the job, and he's always Mr. Sunshine and lollipops and all that. Pete McKinnon was a nice guy, but he didn't have the mold of being a manager. I think you got to surround him with some better pieces. And I even said this yesterday. Guys like Herrera and Franco have talent, but they're frustrating to watch. Well, guess what? They were like that when another manager was running the show. It's just not under Gabe.
Exactly. And you need some continuity for starters, and to bring in some of the new guys that they did this season, and then guys in the middle of the season, at the trade deadline even, it takes a while for everyone to gel. And I think another year with Gabe Kapler running the show, another spring training, and all of that, I think that's where you're going to see the real growth in the franchise. And especially because the Phillies have money this offseason, you bring in a marquee player to add to this team, and all of a sudden you're looking at the Phillies in a completely different fashion. I see if the Phillies were going to, if they were to even think about dismissing him as manager, how you're just crumbling all of the foundation that you've built so far. And really, there is a foundation there, and it's only going to be better if they can, sign somebody big this offseason.
Now you bring that up. Do you believe? See, I think it's different in other sports like the NBA. Do you buy into this notion where, and quite frankly, I don't think a week to close the season makes a difference, where the way they've lost over the last month is actually going to be a hindrance when they're trying to go after a free agent? Because at the end of the day, to me, it's who's going to break the bank, who's going to spend the most money. That's the way I look at it, especially with players like Harper and Machado.
Yeah, that's the overriding thing, because players, when they envision themselves in a new situation, the one thing they look at is, how can my presence make a difference in this team? What can I give this team that it doesn't have already right now? And if you look at Bryce Harper on this particular team, you just imagine yourself being able to put Bryce Harper in right field for the Philadelphia Phillies on opening day next year. this is a completely different team, and you've got. I think that's one of those things where it doesn't matter what happens down the stretch. They weren't going to make the playoffs. It became obvious, and I think it's a natural reaction. It's no reflection on Gabe Kapler or, frankly, the players themselves. You reach a point where you realize we've given it all we can, and it's not going to be. We're not going to reach our goal of making the playoffs. I think it's human nature to let down a little bit, and that's what we're seeing, at least in my mind. I think there's still plenty of light at the end of this tunnel for the Phillies.
Has the situation kind of manifested itself a little more because the way they've been getting blown out and some of his decision-making by pulling guys and keeping guys in and shuffling the line? See, that's it seems the biggest gripe is that he's consistently shuffling the lineups. And I made the point with Harper. Harper's hit all over the place this year. I mean, it's just not like he was always batting in the 2-hole or the 3 spot or the 4. I mean, they've moved around all over the place. So we see it done with other teams shuffling lineups.
Sure, and I think Kapler is probably one of the guys that, because of what the numbers say on any given night, he may be prone to shuffling the lineup maybe more than most. But what he's going to find is, at least I think, you can have a certain set of assumptions based on the numbers, and you develop a feel for your players as well. And all of the best teams combine both the stats and the scouting. I think he's going to get better with experience, and he's going to know when to say, all right, I'm going to trust my gut tonight and have this player in the lineup or this player bat in this particular spot, or I want to leave Rhys Hoskins in the number 3 spot or something like that. He's going to get a better handle on that as he gets the experience as a major league manager, and I think that's what we can look forward to in the future for the Phillies. Did
DeGrom wrap up the NL Cy Young Award last night?
Wow. I thought Max Scherzer made a really powerful statement with his 10 strikeout game the night before. But when you look at what DeGrom has done over the course of the season, it's 24 consecutive quality starts.
Yep.
The ERA, I think, second lowest in Mets team history, only to Doc Gooden. I think what he's done, he's been the best pitcher, and he got the win last night. So now he's not a losing pitcher. He's got a 10-9 record. I think he's done everything possible, and I think it'll be close, but I think DeGrom deserves it.
Do you think he gets it?
I think he does.
Yeah.
I do.
How about some of these scenarios now in the NL? We pretty much we like to think we have it figured out, right? With the Braves winning the East, you got the Cubs and the Brewers in the Central, both the clinch. We'll figure out how the West was won, right? Colorado and the Dodgers. But the Cubs, to me, best case scenario, number 1 seed, right? Because to me, they have the simplest path to the number 1 seed. If they win out, they get it. I just get this sense, though, Milwaukee's going to have their hand. They're going to have a say in this when it's all said and done. When we're talking about the NL pennant, I just this sneaky suspicion that you look at this team and all of a sudden 4 straight. They play good in Miller Park. They can hit home runs. They got a good lineup. They got a good starting rotation. I just think they might just kind of fly under the radar and really upset the apple cart.
I think you're right, Rich. And one of the things that I like about them is the bullpen is very strong. And you look at other teams, the Cubs, their bullpen is kind of in flux right now. We don't know what to expect from them. The Braves, they've been solid, but Vizcaíno, their closer, is coming back and into the mix, so you don't really know exactly how that's going to work for them. The Rockies bullpen, with the exception of Wade Davis, has been pretty bad this season, and the Dodgers rely really heavily on Kenley Jansen. So at this point, I think you're right. I think that Milwaukee has maybe not the starting pitching staff, but they're able to get the job done, and they've gotten the job done down the stretch to where they're playing, I think, better than anybody right now in the National League. And if I had to say who my favorite to go to the World Series is right now on Thursday, and it could change in the next few days, I think Milwaukee might be my favorite from the National League just because of all those factors.
Yeah, and they went out and they made moves, and they were aggressive, and you kind of see the difference in some of the moves they made. And again, not to pick on the Phillies, compared to some of the moves that they made. I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. How about over in the AL? You got Boston, you got the Yankees, you got Cleveland, you got Houston, you got the A's, and it looks like it's going to be the Yankees and the A's next Wednesday. The question is, who's going to be the starter? I keep going back and forth in my mind, and I'm trying to come up with certain scenarios here. And to me, you got Happ. He's slated to start Friday night, so he would be 4 days rest for the wild card game. Then you got Tanaka, right, who just had to start. He can be Booney's choice, but again, maybe you give him extended rest. He's coming off a couple subpar outings, and then you have Severino, who just won his 19th on Tuesday. He's slated to pitch again on Sunday, which would be his regular turn, but maybe that can be shortened to allow him to pitch in the wild card game.
Yeah, I think you could just, skip his start altogether if the Yankees have wrapped up home field and don't have that on the line on Sunday in the regular season finale. You could skip Severino, have a bullpen day or whatever, and have him with extra rest coming into the wild card game. I'll tell you what, Rich, I think this could be a situation where, we've talked a little bit about, the opener strategy throughout the course of the season. I think the wild card game is the perfect place to implement that. I mean, you've got your rosters, you can set them for one game, and then you can reset them for the division series if you win. I think it sets up perfectly for teams if they want to just, maybe even save a starter and have an opener type situation, or have somebody, a regular starter, maybe Tanaka or whoever else, come in the second inning. I know that's kind of radical and probably won't happen, but I think strategy says that's not a bad way to approach it, because what you want to do is you want to get the other team off of their game. You want to have their left-handed hitters face your left-handed pitchers, or vice versa. So this is a really interesting thing now in this era where teams have at least considered the positive aspects of having an opener to see if anybody decides to do that in a one-game situation like the wild card game.
Well, I don't see Boone doing it. I know he came out and he basically said it's either going to be Happ, Tanaka, or Severino. I know what you're saying. Mm-hmm. It's not like what they did the other day when they started Holder.
Right.
And quite frankly, I want to see one of the starters starting the game. I can see a situation where one of the starters is pitching well and comes out a little early because they're lined up and rested with some guys ready to go. Maybe a little aggressive in certain situations, but I personally don't want to. I want to see a starter out there, and quite frankly, at this stage of the game, I'll take my shot with either Tanaka. And the more I think about it, I would even consider Happ.
I think you're right, Rich. I think what you can do, sort of combine what both of us are talking about, is put Happ out there and have the quick hook, because he's a left-hander, and you know that Oakland likes to play the matchup, so they're going to have their lineup set up to face a left-handed starting pitcher. And if you pull the plug on him in, the third inning or the fourth inning or something like that, bring in a right-hander and have your bullpen progression, I think that's an effective way to attack that. So it would not surprise me if J. Happ ends up being the starter in the wild card game, and we see something like that play out.
Who right now, I know we've gone back and forth with Boston and Houston. Have you changed your opinion? Do you still think the Astros are still clear-cut the team to be coming out of the AL because of some of the deficiencies that the Red Sox have?
I don't know that it's clear-cut, to tell you the truth, and every day I look at things and it seems like it changes a little bit. I still think the Astros are the best positioned team to come out of the American League. So if they end up facing the Red Sox in the ALCS, I think we'll see an epic series for sure, but I think the Astros are better balanced to win that series. Of course, anything can happen in that, in a 7-game series, but I think they're better balanced. And I think, too, we can't sell Cleveland short.
No.
Because you look at their starting rotation.
Yep.
I mean, they got 4 guys with 200 strikeouts. They could be a huge factor, especially, if Josh Donaldson can give them anything in the postseason here. That's a dangerous lineup as well. So I think whether it's it's Houston, whether it's the Red Sox, or even if it's Cleveland coming out of the AL, I think the AL team will be favored over whoever the National League can produce as their pennant winner.
Before I let you out of here, there were a couple polls that were run by some baseball writers on the AL Rookie of the Year. And I'm curious, I look at what Andahar has done this year, and I know everyone's enamored with Ohtani, but I would think it's a complete travesty and joke if they gave it to Ohtani.
Really, I'm back and forth on that. And
I knew you were. That's why I asked you. I said on the air, I guarantee you're going to be back and forth on this one.
Yeah, and for a while I thought it was Torres's award to lose. Andujar came on and played maybe a little bit better down the stretch, but I look at him, he's not great defensively. And I think, Rich, for me, the tipping point, if I were a Rookie of the Year voter, would be that when Ohtani came back from the injury to his pitching elbow and started playing as the DH on a regular basis, almost an everyday basis, the way that he hit and hit so well, I think that has tipped the scales in his favor to me, because not only was he, that pitching and hitting threat earlier in the season, but when he came back, he showed that he could be, his on-base plus slugging percentage, even though he doesn't have the at-bats as some of the leaders do, is a top 10 in the American League. That's pretty valuable. So I think that's where the difference is that, where he's got the ability to fall back on. He doesn't play defense, but where he's got the ability to fall back on that hitting in addition to what he did pitching, I think that's where he's the winner, at least in my mind.
Yeah, good points. Hey, listen, Andahar and Torres, both great seasons, 298, 276 respectively. They combined for, I think, close to 50 home runs. It's going to be interesting to watch. And listen, I think Ohtani is on the cusp, or would have been first player with 20 home runs, 50 strikeouts as a pitcher. He needed one more stolen base to join Trout, and Devon White is the only rookies with 20 home runs, 10 stolen bases in Angels history. We know Trout was a hell of a player. White wasn't a bad player either.
No, not at all. He was outstanding, and throw defense in there too. He was almost criminally underrated, I think, as a player.
Yeah, all right, we'll see how it plays out. Couple more games to know, postseason baseball. Can't wait. It starts next week.
Best time of the year,
All right, Steve. Always appreciate the insight, pal. Have a good week. We'll talk next week.
Thanks so much.
All right,
Take
you got
care.
it. Steve Gardner with some good stuff.